G'day legends. Bitcoin and crypto are back up, and just like that we feel good. I've got some notes written down, I'll just read them to you. So Bitcoin overnight hit 74,685. So as we'd been talking about, it suggested that it was a good chance it could hit that $74,000 region. It's hit that. It hit it a bit earlier. I was expecting to wake up this morning and it be all red. It actually hit it probably before I went to bed last night, and I just didn't realise because, as I've been saying, don't sit on your phone and just be watching the markets the whole time. It's not healthy for you. So I didn't actually know. I'd say it hit it about midnight last night, something like that. And then it slingshot back up. So Bitcoin went from that 74.5 rough region up to just over 80,000. We're now sitting at 79,500. This is all in US dollars, of course, because that's what we measure crypto in generally, apart from in your actual account. But that's what we talk about. Why did it go up so fast? Well, there was a leak to the US TV stations. I saw it on CBS that there was a 90-day tariff pause that was the Trump administration was looking at doing, and then so for it to get onto the actual news, generally those places sort of have pretty good sources. They're not known for, even though like you might call it fake news, and I certainly think along those lines a little bit. They generally know what they're, they don't put up stuff that's just a false rumor. Then the Trump administration comes out and says it's not true at all. But I would be questioning whether that was a false release by someone pretty powerful, such as the Trumps, to stop the market from falling much further. It's got to that point. It's got to a point in the technicals where if it went through that 74,000 region, where it's really starting to look quite bleak. So it hit that point. All of a sudden, there's a leak of a false report that sends us back up. You read into that whatever you want. I'm not here to start rumors, but I am giving you my thoughts, which is all it is. Just like to think outside the box a little bit. Keep an open mind. All right, so that's one thing. Now, another thing that sent us up a bit is the EU, the European Union, was talking about negotiating back to zero for their for tariffs, and then hours later changed their mind and said no, we'll do 25%. So that initial zero was a good number. That's what a lot of people were. That's what we want. We want a lot of this, and because we know that's what the US government wants, what Trump wants is he wants all those trade blocks that's on the US gone, and so he's putting his own in place to make that happen. So that happened. So they don't see, they're sort of, I don't know if anyone knows what's going on. Another thing that's come out overnight for me was Larry Fink was at a conference somewhere, and he's being interviewed. He's the head of BlackRock, which is the biggest financial institution in the world. Got 11 trillion or $11.5 trillion that they manage. And so some of the things he said first, this was another one that was bullish that sent things up. He originally, the first thing that came out was that he said he feels like, even though it could go lower, this is probably a good buying time in the stock market and crypto. Then he went, and a bit further in the interview, said a few things were a bit negative. So that's very bullish, positive. Then he said things like this. He thinks that there's a 0% chance that there will be 4 or 5 rate cuts this year. That's a negative thing to say, but I actually agree with him. I think there'll be 3. So I'm just going to come out and say that. Doesn't matter what I think, though. I'm just giving an opinion. So is he, by the way. He's just giving an opinion, unless he knows something, which he might. He also said he could also see there being one increase in rates. So that's bad. No one else is sort of thinking that. He also warns that the White House's actions, the tariffs, could be more inflammatory than the markets expect. That one, I personally have been looking into tariffs a bit, and found some opposing things, that some are saying it's not inflationary, could actually be deflationary. I will put that in a different video, because that is more of a make up your own mind, and you can only tell when you look back at data. So we don't really know, but I'll put out a video on that I've heard from someone else who was saying stuff. He also said that he wouldn't be surprised if there's another 20% drop in the stock market. That would be bad. So you've already had a 20% drop, which is considered a crash. Once you hit 20% in the stock market, that is a crash. And that is generally when people, for me, that's, it stops at 20% a lot of the time, because they, it's 20%, right, we know that's a crash. Now the big guys start buying. That's what I sort of think happens, right? We've hit crash. Now we need to buy. We know that is typically a good point for buying. He also said we are probably in a recession now. So the US, he's saying we are probably in a recession now. With all that's going on, he could very well be right there, because recession data is backwards looking by roughly half a year, because you have to have 2 quarters of negative growth, and you only know you've had 2 quarters of negative growth once you've got the data in, which generally happens in the 3rd quarter. So by the time you're in a recession, you've already been in it for half a year. He's also came out and said that he was talking to the airline CEOs, which probably something he probably talks to a lot of CEOs, and he said they're a bit like the canary in the coal mine, and it's sick at the moment. The airline industry is unwell. They're not doing very well. So there's just some things he said that have an effect on the markets, because people listen to him. I am in the camp of don't really watch what he... Well, listen to what he says, but watch what he's buying and selling more. So if you hear someone say, if you're not a person that researches into that yourself, if you hear someone say BlackRock is buying Bitcoin, if BlackRock is buying stocks or shares, BlackRock is selling something, pay attention to that, not necessarily what they're saying. Just keep it at the back. It's not as powerful as what they actually do. JP Morgan says they fear recession. They are known for saying the opposite of what they mean. They are one that you actually sort of, whatever they say, think the opposite type of thing. JP Morgan, if they actually thought that recession was coming, would be trying to pump the market to sell you their stocks and whatever, their shares, so that they could cash out before the recession and collect deeper money so that they could buy at the bottom. They would not be spreading fear and uncertainty and doubt. FUD. That's my personal opinion. The USA midterms, another thing that we can keep an eye on. I know we've just had an election, but if Trump doesn't have the stock markets pumping by midterms, the others will take over. They'll win the midterms, the other side. So just something to think about. So a lot of, just putting it out there. You may be thinking this is really bad and it's going to take a while to fix. It can't take that long, or he's going to lose, his office or whatever happens over there. I'm an Aussie, so I don't actually know that much about how we don't have midterms over here. So yeah, but anyway, supposedly he could lose the midterms. Fear is an unhealthy disease spreading around the financial world right now. So try not to feel fearful in your crypto, any other investments. You've got to take your emotion out of it. The other thing I like when I think about this is fear is learned. You learn to fear things. You learn to fear the stocks dropping, that type of thing. So you can unlearn it. And that's what I'm at. Like, you only lose money if you sell. Um, yeah. So fear is learned. Try and unlearn it. The US stock market targets came out from, who was it from? Bank of America, Oppenheimer, JP Morgan, UBS, Goldman Sachs, plus a few more. I got tired of writing them down. And they've reduced their targets, but their targets are still 10 to 15% higher than they are now. This is for the end of 2025. They're still higher than they are now by 10 to 15%. So if we're down 20% now, they're at least going to claw their way back nearly to where they were, is what these big, entities are predicting. That is the end of all of my notes. So I hope that's helped keep you informed. I hope it's helped to keep you not in fear. And if you've made it to this point in the video, if it has helped you, please chuck a like on, share it with someone else that you think might need to know these things. Have a great afternoon. Do something nice for someone else. Crypto Bogan out.